Kaimere is a distant planet. It is defined by waves of life brought from Earth and set free to evolve independently in this new context. The indigenous life of the planet, swarms of microbes called magic by the people who live there, are what harvest Earth organisms and make copies on Kaimere. As the asteroid which concluded the Mesozoic never struck Kaimere, dinosaurs remain the dominant terrestrial megafauna. On Earth today, the largest crocodilians reach lengths of around 6 meters, with dubious historical reports adding a meter or so to that estimate. Many times throughout prehistory, crocodiles got substantially larger than this, with estimates suggesting some species could reach 11 or so meters under the right conditions. In modern crocodilians, males can be dramatically larger than females, with the largest saltwater crocodile bulls estimated at 1.5 tons, while the largest cows don't even reach half a ton and are usually substantially smaller than that. As crocodilians generally exhibit greater extremes in difference between sexes as the species itself gets larger, a trend in nature called Wrench's rule, we can assume similar disparities in these prehistoric giant crocs. However, that said, there are often exceptions to trends in nature, so this should not be said with absolute certainty. Female crocodilians tend to defend their nests, which are terrestrial. Needing to be nimble on land is a factor which may inhibit their size, while bulls have no such restrictions. This disparity in size between the largest members of both sexes is found in crocodilians and Kaimere. While averages don't show much difference, it is very evident at the extremes. Female saltwater crocodiles in Kaimere are not much larger on average than those of Earth, yet bulls can reach 7 meters and 8 in extreme specimens. These largest bulls weigh in at up to 4 tons, though again it must be said, most male salties are between 1 and 2 tons. This is a particularly massive predator, and often the apex predator of shallow waters and mangrove ecosystems of the inland sea and its adjoining estuaries. But even these largest bulls fall far short of males in the 3 largest giant crocodilians in Kaimere. The ancestors of 2 of these giants were introduced to Kaimere from the great sloth harvest of South America at the end of the Miocene, Purosaurus and either Gryposuchus or Hesperogavialis. Both were around the same size, with bulls generally between 7 and 10 meters in length, and cows substantially smaller. Both were originally replicated in the Siritic wetlands, where they became defining taxa, but throughout the anchored period would go on to spread throughout the known world and beyond. Today, the largest pseudosuchian known to the assembly is the Zhen. These enormous gharial remain a freshwater specialist, but they have tremendous diversity in size of freshwater fish in the wetlands of the known world. This lifestyle has paid off in spades, and the largest bulls can reach a staggering 15 meters and 15 tons. Though it must be said, most bulls are closer to 10 to 12 meters and 6 to 8 tons, and these tremendous specimens only occur in especially productive habitats with the space and game to support these river kings. If there's one thing more spectacular than their size, it's the impact these behemoths have on their environment. Alligators define the Everglades, and it is their largest 1-ton individuals carving channels with their movement through grass and mud which has the most notable impact. It is the same in Kaimere, yet the channels are of far greater size when excavated by a 15-ton gharial. These channels facilitate new flows in the waterways, linking populations of fish and other fauna, along with spreading nutrients around the wetland by step and depositing of their dung. Stagnant water is rare in the Siritic wetlands thanks to the movement of the Zhen and other large crocodilians. Kurajaku are often given the moniker of river maker, but the low-slung mass of Zhen is responsible for far more channels, and they may be more deserving of this title. While Zhen generally target fish, they are opportunistic hunters, and small game are on the menu too. It should come as no surprise that, to a 15-meter crocodilian, people are on the menu. They are particularly aggressive and rarely seek out human prey, but it does happen, and avoiding nests is a wise general rule. Zhen are found in their greatest abundance in the Siritic wetlands, though they range throughout the modern known world and beyond. Bulls are found in estuaries and even marine environments, though cows and young tend to be restricted to freshwater residents. Zhen have been sighted in both Kyrule and Nikar to the east, and far to the west throughout the wetlands of northern Arvel and western Nikar. Some argue for as many as 3 distinct species. After all, exiting the Dorat Sea south of the Horse latitudes is rarely done by Zhen smaller than 10 tons, given the colder waters, so the Trakayam, Doret, and Kalin populations are fairly distinct. However, bulls freely travel and reproduce between, and it remains convention to refer to these giant gharials as a single species. Purosaurus was another giant crocodilian introduced after the Siritic wetlands were purged by an algal bloom, but these giant caiman are actually quite rare in this habitat today. The story is much different in the west. The southern Arvel and western Nikar have their populations. It is the wetlands throughout the Titan Gardens in northern Arvel which sees the Hrugetaur as the most common large crocodilians. They are the second largest crocodilian after the Zhen, with the large bulls ranging between 8 and 10 meters, and the largest specimen known to the assembly being a 13-meter male named Vocek, found in the estuaries near the Great Northern River in western Arvel. Hrugetaur are extremely heavily built crocodilians. Their skull is very broad and heavy. When attacking large game, the heft of the jaws striking prey is often as devastating, if not more so, than the bite itself. The Zhen is generally restricted to fish, but Hrugetaur often seek out prey approaching their own size and sometimes larger. Really, the only animal off the menu of the giant caiman are the largest of titans. Zhentar and Kurojaku may be able to overpower most of them, but penetrating the hide can be a tall order. Females and young males are of course a lot more vulnerable, yet the enhanced armor of these crocodilians affords them substantial protection. Like several other Chimeran and Earth caiman, their armored hide is not as flexible as alligators or crocodiles, but it is harder. This protects them, and even against Kurojaku of greater size, the formidable defenses are often enough for them to hold their own. The assembly have numerous reports of stopping rifles that can drop an elephant or a Zhentar, ricocheting off the back of even common caiman and smaller Hrugetaur, and the largest males are considered entirely bulletproof, hence the nickname ironclad. Caiman leather is unfortunately quite brittle, so other crocodilian hide is generally preferred for armor, though many peoples of Arvel still favor caiman hide for its reputation. As one might expect, these heavily fortified caiman are not particularly aggressive. There are actually very few accounts of them attacking people, and most are 6 to 7 meter cows defending their nest. They are terrifying when attacking potential prey, and the lateral strike of their jaws has broken limbs of a wide range of megafauna, not to mention boats in their territory. But even potential threats like Zhentar or Kurojaku are given ample warning before a fight. The third giant crocodilian does not share this generally docile temperament. Throughout the Tyrant Dynasty, 2 clades of alligatorid were found in abundance. Largest were the generalist Sobek netarids, which reached their prime in the enormous genus Sobek itself, which may have reached a staggering 17 meters in length for the largest males of the largest and latest species. The smaller yet more formidable clade were the Aborsuchians, the tusked crocodiles. These alligatoroids are diagnosed by 10 pronounced teeth growing far beyond the usual dimensions of these same teeth in most crocodilians. They have been compared to Caprosuchus, which was originally assumed to be a member of this clade by assembly naturalists when first described on Earth, but it appears to be convergently evolved trait from an entirely different lineage. As these species are all fairly consistent across Hyrule, it appears they specialized early on and not particularly adaptable. These tusked, backed by a powerful bite, are ideal for penetrating and holding large prey. Tusked crocodiles are semi-aquatic, just like other alligatoroids. They target large and armored game, such as fish and other crocodilians. In Hyrule, the semi-aquatic rhino appears to make up a substantial portion of their diet. On this diet, the tusked crocodiles grew massive, with the genus Aborsuchus gaining a length of 12 meters in the largest bulls. Once Aborsuchus arrived in the Hrugetaur wetlands within the past million years or so, the abundant large fish, crocodilians, dinosaurs, and mammals offered plenty of opportunity. It is unknown if they had a hand in the relative rarity of the giant caiman in this habitat, not to mention the smaller average size than their Arvelith population, but they do compete for the same prey. Aborsuchus constructs simpler nests than Purosaurus, and this may well have been a deciding factor during the arid period 1.5 million years ago, which brought in large crocodiles from Earth and Aborsuchus from Hyrule to the wetlands, both competing for the same prey that the giant caiman enjoyed more exclusive access to back during the anchored period, and could account for their rarity in the Hrugetaur wetlands today. The fact that Aborsuchus did not spread west could support this, as the giant caiman had recovered by the time they looped around the western peninsula of the Crescent, showing the giant caiman may well be dominant in stable conditions, but were set upon at a low point at the end of the anchored period. Both species compete with Hrugetaur throughout their range, which also use fangs to subdue armored prey, though the attack of the theropod is paired with enormous claws. In this environment, Aborsuchus has become a distinct species, the Han Zhu. Han Zhu are the smallest of the three giant crocodiles, but generally considered the most dangerous to chimerans. They don't generally regard chimerans as prey at the larger sizes, but are quite aggressive to small mammals. Especially during the nesting season, both sexes can be quite dangerous. Females are especially protective of their nesting site, while males will generally attack potential threats, especially if they smell a female's territory nearby. They are also just generally fairly aggressive. They lack the impressive fortifications of the Hrugetaur. Hardly unarmored, but it's not to the extreme of the giant caiman. They are more vulnerable to Hrugetaur and Zhentar in their habitat, but their jaws can inflict formidable damage to those potential threats, so it is generally accepted that they can give as good as they get. They are still prey to the largest Hrugetaur bulls, but female Hrugetaur are on much more equal footing. It can be surprising to find all three of these giant crocodiles and the Hrugetaur in the same environment. There is a degree of niche partitioning, with the Zhen favoring large fish, Han Zhu targeting smaller crocodiles and the abundant hippos, Hrugetaur seeking generally larger game, and Hrugetaur being a generalist. But the truth is, the diet of all four overlap. The three crocodilians need a fraction of the caloric demands of the Hrugetaur, and therefore are much better able to share space. Perhaps because of this, the giant crocodilians are much more abundant throughout the known world. Cheers to Ian for sponsoring this episode. While I had originally planned on including these three in the episode of Living Pseudosuchians, giving the three giants a focal episode was much appreciated. Yes, big crocodiles are compelling simply because huge animals are inspiring and exciting, but there's also something to be said for the great size being possible because of highly productive habitats. We already see this in a range of living crocodilians. Less productive regions have smaller crocs. Sure, some species are naturally smaller, but the trend can be seen in species that can get massive. It takes a lot to make a big croc. The Miocene of South America may have had so many giants simply because the wetlands were productive enough to support them. It must be said that it's not simply a matter of crocs being able to reach these dimensions of prehistoric giants because they have enough space and food. Nile and saltwater crocodiles, with all the space and resources they desire, still max out at around 6 meters. Purosaurus, estimated to be around 2 meters long, are still clearly juvenile morphs, whereas a salty of the same length looks much more mature. However, productive habitats enable the evolution of large crocodiles in the bases of population, not individual. We're not going to see a 10-meter salty if it only has enough space and food. The population needs to have time to attain these dimensions, but it's theoretically possible in our future with the right conditions. There's nothing particularly special about the crocodilians of Kaimere. They aren't large because of any inherent superiority or ferocity. They're big because they can be. They are an enduring testament to the productivity of Kaimere's wetlands. Thanks again to Ian, to my Patreon patrons for making all of this possible, and thank you for watching. Next week, we will meet a relic of a lost world, the last Sebekid. Until that time, stay fantastic, everyone. Cheers, folks!